in absentia, if the chairman is off hitting the finance committee hearing, let me add my thanks to him as well by having this kind of hearing on transit long overdue. I'm going to take a moment or two and speak to an issue that I'm sure my friend Chris Van Hollen will also speak to as well, and that is the importance of Washington, the Washington region's metro system. The truth is, in many ways, the whole federal government runs on metro, and before the pandemic, this is the system that really kept our federal government running. It kept our region running. Matter of fact, 40% of metro riders were federal government employees. And the unfortunate thing is the COVID has had a dramatic effect on metro as it had on transit systems all across the country. The entity that runs metro is called WMATA. So we've got to make sure, and one of the things that we feel very strongly about, and we made sure that we put into the CARES bills, was support for Washington Metro. In 2008, Congress recognized the fact and finally passed in a bipartisan way called PREA legislation that was basically a 10-year deal where $150 million a year in federal funds were authorized to the metro system to recognize the fact that we were, while our localities, DC, Maryland, and Virginia, were chipping in a lot, the federal government was chipping in a bit here to take care of the special needs of federal workers. Since that time, the surrounding jurisdictions have upped their contributions to metro. It's now time for the federal government to do the same. That 10-year run has obviously expired. We've kind of, Chris and I and Ben Cardin and Tim Kaine have kept that $150 million going on an annual basis the last couple of years, but we've now introduced legislation called the Metro Safety, Accountability, and Investment Act that would fund Metro with a dependable revenue stream for an additional 10 years. This would not only continue the $150 million a year that Metro has received from the federal government, but it would also increase if we meet certain additional safety requirements, because we have had some safety challenges on Metro over the years. It would increase that commitment by 10 years. I'm looking forward to working with the chairman and Senator Van Hollen to make sure that we continue to move this stream forward. And at least for me, it is clearly one of my top priorities. Moving on to try to get a question in as well. One of the things that we have to grapple with is the state of good repair investments. They are critically important to transit systems all around the country, including Metro, including some of our smaller systems around Virginia. WMATA's current state of good repair needs are estimated at $16 billion in order to rehabilitate and replace some of the aging assets, including upgrading a number of the rail cars. So, Ms. Osborne, can you talk about the importance of the federal formula for funding for the State of Good Repair program and how these funds are so essential to programs like Metro and other major transit systems around the country?
Absolutely, Senator Warner. You mentioned how much the federal government and the region relies on WMATA, and it reminds me of how strong support comes across the country from local businesses, because it turns out that all businesses, whether it's the federal government or private business, rely heavily on transit. It's why we see in places like Cincinnati and Atlanta, the business community leading the effort to support transit. We just would not function as a community without it. State of repair is a super high priority of my organization. It is our top priority, not just for transit, but for highway investment. A fix-it-first approach is something we have been supporting, pushing amendments and language on for a long time. We have a better record in requiring a look at maintenance needs on the transit side, and I hope that is something that we continue to support to ensure that our region can operate efficiently and effectively.
Well, I agree with that. Having been a former governor and fought transportation and infrastructure battles for many, many years, making sure that we don't see the deterioration of our systems is so critically important. I don't have time for another question, but I do want to just acknowledge Mr. Samuelson and all the transit worker unions. I mean, your workers had to stay on the front lines through the whole COVID experience, and even with the enormous challenges. And I want to commend you and your workforce. And one of the things why it's so important that we get these transit funds in place, not only is for the dollars needed to continue to operate, but to again show support for our workforce. I think with that, I see Senator Warren, but I believe I was supposed to call on Senator Tester next. I've been given a cheat sheet here. John, are you? If not, I'm going to call on Senator Warren. But John Tester, are you on the line? With that, going once, twice, three times, gone. Tester, over to Warren.